This presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number ED-ESE-15-A-0015/0006 with Synergy Enterprises Incorporated. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred.
Good afternoon and welcome to our Promising Program Showcase, Part 1. I'm Sarah Brightwell, the Lead Training Specialist for the Office of Indian Education NAL ED project. Thank you so much for bearing with us during our technical difficulties. We appreciate you sticking around and joining us today. During this showcase, we will introduce the promising programs and leaders, provide an overview of the history and growth of these programs, and share tips and strategies for program structure, curriculum, and instructional strategies. We also look forward to hearing from you in our question and answer segment. At the end of the webinar, we'll share our contact information in case you think of other questions later. Before we start, let's review some of the features on our webinar screen. Our producer, Dave Mazza, will walk you through them. Dave?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Thanks, everyone, for being patient with us. We got our issues resolved. So really, on the web page, what you're looking at, if you're looking at a page like that, you just click on play. If your chat room looks like this, just go ahead and refresh your browser. You can go in and sign up with just by easy username, but don't put a space in, and your email address. Hit submit, you'll be into the chat room. Also, too, you know you're going to have questions throughout today, so add those into that chat room as we're going along, and we'll try to get to all of those throughout our event today. Also, you'll be asked to do some polls, so if you do, scroll down below our window when asked to, and then just go ahead and fill out our poll. So we thank you for your time. Oh, I almost forgot. This is very important. If you have colleagues, or if you have some other, or even if you wanted to watch this again, this session will be recorded and sent to you via Dropbox. I'm sure Sarah will probably be doing that for you. So enough for me. Let's go back to Sarah and have her continue on with our wonderful program.
Thanks, Dave. So as many of you know, in January and February, I was able to travel to Montana and Hawaii to visit 4 amazing native language programs. These programs graciously opened their doors to share their programs, insights, and lessons learned with all of you. So let's jump right in and take a quick look at the programs that you'll be getting to know better today.
I came in 1998, and prior to my arrival, the history had been shared with me, and things fade over the years. But as far as I'm concerned, we earmarked 1995 as the start of our school. There was a lot of action in building the school prior to 1995, in that the parents were petitioning for a Hawaiian immersion school to be built here in Kona as early as 1991 for their children. And there were things that happened prior to 1995, but 1995 is marked as our starting year, because we began to exist within the Department of Education structure. So that's when we began, and the parents were very instrumental in starting our school. As I said, they petitioned, they drove the whole movement and found the teachers, and that's kind of the background of how we began. So when we began in the early years, we were a program within a school. Much like there are programs within schools still in existence throughout the state of Hawaii for immersion, we began just like that. We were a small program, and we started with the babies in preschool, and each year we grew a class and added on a class. In 2007 was our first graduating class. Those were the kids whose parents started the school back in the beginning. Through those years, in 2002, we were a program within Quanawaina School, and the principal at the time called the teachers in on April 1st and told us, the state is giving you your own org ID, your own school, your own principal, and your own SASA, which is the administrative assistant. And we thought it was an April Fool's joke because it was on April 1st, and we're like, are you sure? I can't say that we pushed for that to happen, but it was in a long-range plan and a document that existed at the state level. And our CAS at the time, our complex area superintendent at the time, I guess behind the scenes was pushing for us to be a K-12 separate school. And because things happened in our complex that were conducive for us to become a school, we were just very blessed in receiving our own school status. So the elementary moved to a new facility, the middle school moved out of this facility, and we became our own school and moved into the current facility that we're in 2003. So 1995 earmarked for the beginning of our program, 2003 when we moved here, and we actually 2002 we gained our own school status, and 2003 we moved here. So those are the significant times that through history, our history, helped us become a K-12 school. And I bring up other immersion schools because a lot of schools in the state are still programs within schools. And if they aren't, they went charter because they wanted that autonomy. So there are charter schools, immersion schools. I believe you're going to meet with one in Hilo, Ka'umeke Ka'eo. I taught there. They were a program within a school, but they went charter. Other schools on Oahu and Maui are part immersion and part English schools. So we were fortunate to be the only ones other than Anuenue in the state to become our own independent, self-contained K-12 Hawaiian language immersion program or school.
Back in 1985, the Blackfeet Community College, along with members in the community, did a language survey and wanted to know what the status of the Blackfoot language was in 1985. And at that time, they realized that the majority of first language speakers were, in their 60s. So they really realized right then and there something needed to be done, or we were going to lose our language like so many other tribes. And so in 85, after that study, Pagan Institute was actually formed as a private 501c3 nonprofit. And it was formed by my father and a gentleman by the name of my father, Daryl Kipp, and his good friend Ed Little Plume and their colleague Dorothy Stillsmoking. And they just said, out of a need to address an issue that the community was facing, they started the immersion program. And originally they wanted to do kind of an adult program was the original thinking and just how to do it. And after visiting the Hawaiians, Panano Leo, they came back, and I can remember my father and others saying, we're doing immersion. Children is where it's at, and we can teach children the language, and at the same time we can also teach adults. And so there's a real win-win to it. And that's kind of the history of where this stemmed from. They opened the very first school back in '95, and that was on Moccasin Flat. And Moccasin Flat is an area here on our reserve, right here in our community. It was really the first area where folks were kind of brought in centralized living. And people still wore moccasins back in those days, so that's how it took on the name Moccasin Flat. And that was really important to my father and to Mr. Little Plume especially, that they build that first school right in the heart of Moccasin Flat, because it made a statement that, hey, this is where the language was spoken at one time every day. You heard it in this community, and now it's going away, so we want to bring that back. So they started Moccasin Flat School, and they started out with just little kids, a group. As that crew grew, they outgrew the building. So they built the second building, and then they added in lost children, and then they added in Cutswood. So as the program expanded, they just expanded each group. And so now all of those schools, so to speak, fall under one roof. And normally, and most times when you talk to people around the country or even locally, they'll say, oh, Cutswood School. But they're really referring to all of it as one. That's the general meaning for it. So we have students here from grade kindergarten to 8th grade. We try to keep it around 30 students. Our biggest dilemma is that we have a huge waiting list of kids that want in this school. So that's something we are always challenged with in terms of just trying to keep it at a nice even number of 30, because that's what the building can hold very well. And we've also found that it's the most efficient and most effective number when we want to, have an impact on language instruction.
We kind of got together. I remember one of the first times we went to Melanie's house, and we were sitting there, and we came up with the name, and we threw around some ideas, and came up with the name Nkusum. Means one family. The root of that word Nkusum means one fire, and it's the Salish word for family. So that's kind of the beginnings. And once we came up with the name and we kind of had some ideas, we never truly flushed out a plan, a strategic plan, or knew exactly. We just, we knew we wanted to get some fluent speakers and some children, find a building and some money, and just like Daryl said, kind of made it sound like it's magic, and so that we had that in our mind, that just do it, get some fluent speakers with some young children and put the language around them. Once we started, we went to council, we talked to different fluent speakers. We got a big support group that supported us, and we came up with this plan, and we went to council, and they were our first funder. They gave us some seed money.
I was already in public school teaching, and a few of us already had our elementary ed degrees. And so talking with Daryl, and also talking with, we went and visited an immersion school in Kotzebue, Alaska. And a lot of the message we got was just do it. Just you'll make mistakes. Just continue and find a place and just do it. So that's what we really did. We just came back and asked the tribe. Actually, we didn't even ask the tribe. We told them, we're going to do this, and if you support us, great. If not, we're still going to do it. And so the building that we are in, they had it, and it had been an old Head Start building, and so they said, yeah, you could use that. And so I just remember in the very beginning, I had to quit my job. I think Tachini quit his job, and we had two of our fluent speakers to help us out, and they came out of retirement and joined us, and we had 3 kids at the very beginning. And so it was just find a place, find some speakers, and find a support network, and so we had our school, and I just kept going from there. So there was a lot of things we had to challenges and obstacles that we had to go through, but we started, which was the main thing that everybody kept saying, just start.
So the history of Ka'umeke Ka'eo is that we were one of the first 2 Hawaiian immersion programs in the state of Hawaii. We were located or co-located at a regular Department of Education school named Keaukaha Elementary School. Keaukaha Elementary School is surrounded by a predominantly Native Hawaiian community because it resides on Hawaiian homestead land. The other school, Waiau, is on Oahu. In about 2001, we decided to convert to a charter school. A portion of our ohana left and went to create another school called Navahi o Kalaniʻopuʻu. They're located in Puna, but there were other ohana that were committed to stay in Keaukaha because it was such a largely Native Hawaiian population.
And now let's meet some of our program leaders. Joining us live today are Elizabeth DeRoche from the Nkusum Salish Language School. Elizabeth?
Epesia Kasanyakoke Elisa Patluisquest. Good day, everybody. My name is Elizabeth, and I am the math teacher here at Inclusum.
Great, thanks for joining us, Elizabeth. And we have Darren Kipp from the Pagan Institute. Darren? Oh, Darren, I think you might be muted.
Okay, Derek Kipper with the Pagan Institute, and I just want to say hello to everybody.
Great, thanks, Darren. And then we'll go over to Olani Lily from Kaumeki Kaeo.
Aloha, o wau o Olani Lily, he po'okumu no wau no Kaumeki Kaeo. Aloha, I'm Olani. I am the principal at Kaumeki Kaeo.
Great, thanks, Olani. And then our fourth program, Ke Kula o I Hunuai Kaimalino staff is not able to join us live today because they have an all-school event, but you'll meet them virtually in some of our video segments, and you'll get to catch them next time on our next showcase. So our guests are joining us live today to elaborate on our video footage and to answer your questions. So please put your questions as we go along in the chat room, and then we'll answer those at the end of the webinar. So one thing I immediately noticed about all four programs that we visited was their practice of starting their day together as a school family with a protocol or ritual. Each program's morning practice looks different, but they all incorporate culturally appropriate and traditional aspects, using the language and setting a tone for the day. So let's take a look at the morning practice at each of our four programs.
Insimanes speak six meanest canes say it so anu sakum komatan ken iksukapi natukam imita nito
give cookie when a galaxy imita.
Imita.
Skeli kom sekvessä uevo, sitä makkeska skeli. Se tykäs kuus. Now näh.
Lost it,
uino na kua iwi. Na ku kia I hiva hiva kau kea kea I ka la. I ka pōmalia e hunu I ka imali no e. Lai e ke aloa I ka pā oloa ke ahe ahe. A ke kamaaina e ka ona kona e. O kona ia o ke au lana ka hea vai. E a ia nea e nau e mai ka loa. Alola o na kona e. Au hea o kou e nā io e ki kaha ana ma ka lewalani. E mukiki ana I ka ike na o au nā kupuna. E ho ola ana I ka lela makua hine. Mai ka aina kaolana I ka hālau a I. Ai ke one kaolana pupu ka hele lani. Velina mai ka kou. E ala mai ka kou e nā kini nā mamo ka aina aloha. Aloha valia aina kou ka hua. Aue ka ilie koho puehu ia nei. E pai ho ia ka po aku I ka maila te kahua le ho. No ka ko e nā pua e ho'olulu ai. E ala e ka I, ka mai, ka palena. I mua loa ka leo ka lana kila. Ke ai halani e veke I ka po pili buga. He ele leo ka poni hina.
a'ale hiki. He kokua kela I ka ohana. He kokua kela ia oi. Ka haawi pio ana, he kokua kela ia oi. Ole. No leila. Pono kako e hana I ke aha. I ke aku, I ke mai. Kokua aku, kokua mai. Pela I hola.
You can see that each morning practice is a beautiful way to set the stage for the day, practice language, and reinforce cultural values and protocols. Now, as you think about your own program, do you have a daily morning practice with your students? You'll notice the poll directly below where you see me, And you can click on your answer there, and we'll come back to review those results shortly. And it's just a quick yes or no. Now, as we think about the morning practices we just watched, I want to talk about some unique characteristics of each. At the Pagan Institute, which was the first program in the clip, they begin with a chant and then take time to play a few games with vocabulary word cards to reinforce language learning. Kaumeki Kaeo, the last program in the video, has encountered some challenges in recent years around their location and facilities. The elementary school is located in a building in a more warehouse-like area now, but you'll notice this has not thwarted their work. They've been flexible and adapted to continue their morning practice in the parking lot blacktop area. Now, 3 of the 4 morning practices we viewed incorporate a story or talk that illustrates a particular value or life lesson and often uses traditional storytelling. In the 3rd program clip, Kaleo, a teacher at the school, gave a talk on faith, hope, and love, which illustrates how these talks are excellent opportunities to embed cultural values and practices. You actually see the Kaimalino students participate in 2 morning practices. One's for the full school, and then one is just for the younger students. It gives the younger students an additional chance to practice language and protocol each day. Now let's go back to our poll and see how many of you are currently doing morning practices. And it looks like everybody who's on today is not currently doing a morning practice piece. So as we think about that and think about how you might be able to incorporate that into your program, I'd like to share why Kaleo, the teacher that you saw giving the talk in the Kaimalino clip, finds the practice of morning practice so invaluable. And so we'll go and see just a little bit of why he finds this to be an important part of their school day.
So the first piece of the morning protocol that we have, it's called our Pico, and we basically it's a physical spiritual connection between for us as to connect us to our ancestors. We have this protocol to have the students be ready before we teach them. We need their minds and their physical part and their spiritual part all align, come together to be ready in order to intake information that we're going to teach them. Now, if we see that they're not ready, then we will not begin the day. We would either have to start over or do something about it so that they are ready. And so every Pico, we have a person that does a ha'iolelo or a speech. And it's basically the mana'o kala or thought of the day. O hea o ko e nā io e ki kaha ana ma ka lewalani, e mukiki ana I ka ike na o ao nā kupuna, e ho'ola ana I ko lelo makuahine, mai ka aina kaolana I ka hālau a I, a I ke one kaolana pupu ka helelani, velina mai kākou. E lua la aku nei, ua helu helu wau I ke kai leka wila, ka mea like a kumpiki I ho'olaha akula, I nehi nei, e pili ana I ke la wahine, e hana ana ma palamanui, kakao oia I leka wila ia po'okumu, me ka mahalo piha I ka hana ao kou ma ke la hua kai I palamanui, no ke ao ana I ke kālai o la kino. Ua komo ka hao oli, ka haaheo, ka mahalo nui I loko o'u, ma ka helu helu ana I kia leka wila nei, no ka mea. And each kumu has their own mana'o or their own thoughts of what they want to share with the whole school. And for me today, I was talking about 3 important things, which was mana'o i'o, mana'o lana, and ke aloha, which is faith, hope, and love. With those 3 things, anything is possible. We can overcome the darkest valley, the most unpleasant place. And for the haumana or the students to understand that is very important. And so it's just spiritual kind of thing and spiritual kind of feeling that they have, and teaching them that in the very beginning, we start our day like how the sun rises. When the sun rises, it rises in the east, so we face to the east. And then when it's done, then we're ready to begin the day. The second protocol that we did, it wasn't really a Pico, but it was just a gathering of the Kula Ha'aha'a or the elementary, and maybe some of the intermediate kids. And we go there to just basically practice our songs that we've been learning. And these are all different types of chants, songs, for the little ones who don't understand or who are not, you know, who don't understand the songs at all. We have that opportunity for them to practice. And so yeah, those are the two meanings.
Exactly what Kaleo said in that clip was echoed across all 4 programs. Each staff member uses this time in the morning to set the stage for their day and to gauge the readiness of each student for learning that day. This helps staff meet the academic needs of each student, along with their social-emotional needs. At Nkusum, the students recite a pledge to start each day. Elizabeth, can you share a bit more about your pledge with the viewers?
Sure. So every day we come in to our school and we start our day in Yamansut, which is a gathering. And in that gathering, we pray, we smudge, and our elders come in, they check in with us, and the kids are able to tell stories, and then we say our pledge. We try to say our pledge every day, and our pledge was created by one of our founders, and it just is a pledge that says that every day we're going to learn our language, we're going to help each other, and that we'll not laugh at each other, and we'll do our best and respect all of our teachers, and that we will never give up. So that's an important part for our kids, that last part, that we will never give up trying to learn our language, and every day we practice that. So.
Great, thanks Elizabeth. I think that's an amazing way to be able to start the day, and you can tell when you're there with the students that this is a pledge that they know backwards and forwards. They're not reading it off of anything. They've got it memorized and really say it with conviction. So a strong morning practice provides immediate feedback to your staff, sets the learning stage, and provides an avenue for practicing both language and cultural practices. Now you'll notice that I said the programs start their days all together as a family, and that's our next commonality. All the programs I visited view their school as a family. The teachers at the Pagan Institute say the school is like grandmother's house, where you can get away with a bit more sometimes, but there's always the utmost respect. They are teaching as a grandmother would teach their grandchild. So let's take a look at the concept of family in some of the other programs.
So the first piece of the morning protocol that we have is called the concept of ohana is very important. And that's why we try and teach our students to respect, no matter who they are, especially if they're elders, because it's very important. We get all of our knowledge, our ike, from our elders, and if we do not respect them, then that's heva, it's wrong. So we teach the kids the importance of ohana, because this is a ohana. If you think about it. This school, I mean, we're only 200, we're very small, but we're ohana oriented.
Underneath Nkusum, our language, it says Nkusin Huadkainuwawishtin, which means one voice for our language. And the idea behind it is that Nkusin means that everybody sits around a drum, or everybody sits at a prayer circle, or everybody is someplace. And it doesn't matter if you're 2 years old or if you're 98 years old, your voice contributes to the one voice that's for the language. And so it's the same thing with the community. The little babies aren't more important than the elders aren't more important. You're all contributing to something collectively. And so that was one of the things that is kind of underlined. Maybe it's not stressed every day, but you can't have a language by yourself.
I think what makes our school strong is that it's family. You know, we are a family, even though we're not blood related. but I respect every single one of them as my sister, my auntie, my mom, you know, and not just my coworkers, the staff, and the students. I respect my students as they're my own child. So I think that, you know, we have our downs and our ups, but we still respect each other, even though I can be grumbling at her decision, but I'm still gonna respect her and still love her, and as if it was just a communication, but we're gonna move on and love each other, respect each other, and don't have no grudges about it. So I think we can, you know, say that, yeah, we are a family. We treat each other as a family with respect and love.
I can vouch that each of these programs truly feels like a family. Now take a moment to think about your own program. Does it feel like a family? Do you speak of it to others as a family? This piece is integral to the programs we visited and could be a cornerstone of your program as well. Now let's delve a bit deeper into each of the programs. I spoke with program leaders and teachers about the instructional strategies they incorporate in their curriculum and teaching to be most effective. They shared a multitude of ideas, and I'm going to highlight just a few here today. Let's take a look.
One of the strategies, personally, I think it's having them have the relevance of what the past, their ancestors, how they learned, and to try and teach it that way. Because a lot of the kids, they're more hands-on, and so back when the ancestors, they did a lot of things and learned doing hands-on things. So a lot of working in the garden, using science-based to help them understand the concepts, doing physical education, but implementing some of the strategies with new Hawaiian vocabulary, and just all those things. By doing, they learn. And there's this proverb that says "Makahana ka ike," by doing we learn. And I think it's so perfect. That's how these kids learn, and it's one good strategy to have them understand and have the relevance into understanding the concepts of what they're learning. Another is visuals. They need to be outside. They need to see things in order to understand. Hawaii is so isolated, I think, and the concepts that, or some of the lessons that are brought in a textbook, for example, like math, they're talking about squirrels and acorns and stuff, and my students are looking at me like, what is that? So we transition to Hawaiian or local things in Hawaii so they can understand and have that relevance. And then we take them out and then we have them use rocks, sticks, plants, and just everything around them to help them visualize and understand those concepts. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think Isinam, one of our instructors here, coined the phrase, say it, sign it, draw it, you know, and it's on all three levels. But historically, our winter count symbols was our writing system, and that's what we recorded our histories on buffalo robes. And that's what we implement for some of our writing system here, as well as English and regular phonetic writings. But the pictograph form is our oldest form of writing, and we keep that alive today. And sign language was universal among the Plains tribes, and it was a way to cross-culturally communicate. And that's what we implement as well here. So sometimes if the students are struggling with a word, they can do the sign or they can draw it, you know. So it gives the students more options, but also a deeper understanding of the Blackfoot way of thinking.
At Kaumeke Ka'eo, we utilize the Papaku Makawalu methodology through all of our grade levels. And what that methodology is really about building an ancestral skill set. And so we do not look at culture and academics as being separate. They're one and the same thing. And what we try to develop within our students is an ancestral skill set. And those skills include being able to categorize the natural environment like our ancestors did, being able to kilo, or to do keen observation, and so be able to look out into their environment, to notice patterns, and even at the higher end, be able to predict what might be coming as they've garnered years and years of experience. The third piece is to makavalu, and so that is to look back at our ancestral knowledge that is held within chants and song, and then be able to see if that's actually occurring today through our keen observation, and then to develop solutions or to document what is happening today. And so that continuum of knowledge, transmittal of what's happening in the environment continues from one generation to the next. Instructional strategies that we utilize, that our kumu utilize with Papaku Makavalu, is we have to sort of teach the teachers to be able to throw out the right questions, because it's not something, it's not a worksheet. It's not, again, a curriculum you can take off the shelf. The teacher has to be a facilitator of knowledge, and so they have to be comfortable in the environment or the context that they're in order to have the questions that they can pose to students, for the students to then get their brains working and ask themselves those same questions and even take it further. And so that's something we've had to teach our teachers. The other thing is around keen observation. When we first started to implement Papaku Makavalu and send our kids out into the environment, they were phasing out. They were not coming back. Our little guys were coming back with, polka dot clouds, and they were purple, and there was unicorns, and there were all those things. So we had to sort of teach our teachers how to teach our students to draw and to articulate what they were actually seeing in the environment as data collection. And so that has been a whole new learning for us as well. The other big key part is that when you observe in the environment and you're looking for answers in the environment, that is not something you can Google or find immediately. It takes time. You have to have patience and perseverance. And so that's another skill that comes along with keen observation, that we've had to have teachers be okay with kind of going off the script when something happens in the environment that is a unique learning experience. A couple years back, we had a first grade teacher who was out at a fish pond site, and they were, maybe it was a second grade, but they were doing their thing, their regular routine that they would do out there. Well, in Auku'u, a bird came and landed, and a kumu had the foresight to stop everything, to readjust the students and have them sit quietly to study this bird, this Auku'u bird. And so the teacher has to feel comfortable enough to know when there is a moment to capture in the environment, to stop what they were doing, what their lesson plan was, and to go with the lesson that the environment is teaching them at that moment.
Now, as you think about the clip we just watched, which strategy would you most want to try or think would be most beneficial for your students? You can go to the poll directly below where you see me and select your answer, and we'll share those in just a few minutes. You'll see you can select from learning outdoors, hands-on learning, say, sign, draw, write, the Papaku Makavalu, other, or none of the above. Now, as you're doing the poll, let's break down these ideas. First, you heard Halimano speak to the cultural importance of being outside and participating in hands-on learning. I've heard many of you state similar thought. But have you been able to get your students outside? If not, what's holding you back from that? Next in the clip, you heard Jesse speak to the idea of learning words through a 4-part process of saying, signing, drawing, and writing. This is really working toward all the learning styles and reinforcing vocabulary. And I've seen Susan and Yukon implementing some similar strategies as well. While at Pagan, Alan, the teacher for the younger students, mentioned how useful this strategy has been with his youngest kiddos because it gives them a means of communicating when they're in the very first stages of language learning. If they don't know a word, they can actually use one of these other strategies, such as drawing the symbol or using a sign language sign for it, and the same works for the teachers. How do you think this would work in your classrooms? Do you think it would be beneficial for your students? Remember that if you have any questions about any of the content today or for any of our guests, just go ahead and pop those in the chat room and we'll get to them at the end of the webinar. Finally, Alani spoke about experiential place-based learning using the Papaku Makavalu strategies. Alani, how have you seen your move to the Makavalu strategies impact student learning?
It's definitely made them better observers of the environment. Our whole push to teach ancestral skill set is really around wanting them to be able to adapt in our environment as the climate changes. The other thing is it's really driven our vocabulary development, because our students need to have appropriate vocabulary in order to define and discuss and to collect the data that they are observing in the environment. And so it's led us to whole new vocabulary around colors and shades and textures and given our sort of like school-based vocabulary.
Wonderful. Thanks for sharing, Alani. And when I was visiting the Kameke students at the fish pond, which you saw in the clip as well, you could really see how excited they were to participate in the various learning activities and how engaged they were in everything they were doing. Now let's go back to our poll and see which strategies you were most interested in exploring further or using with your students. And it looks like right now the majority of our votes are for the hands-on learning strategies, as well as that say, sign, draw, write method. Thank you for sharing and taking that poll. And you can also feel free to elaborate or put other ideas over in the chat box. We do have our curriculum webinar coming up on May 23rd, and I'll make sure that we include these topics that you indicated in the poll and more. So as I traveled program to program and met with so many amazing educators, I asked each of them what their advice would be to all of you. It was an impressive array of tips and wisdom, and I'd like to share just a few of their tidbits with you today.
Just to look up Daryl Kipp and his philosophies of immersion schools, you know, his 4 rules: don't ask permission, we don't need permission to teach the language or learn the language, don't debate the issues, don't get caught up on, oh, well, this person says that, you know, just do it, you know, show, don't tell, don't be afraid to do what you're doing, you know, don't question whether or not it's a good thing, because I can guarantee it's a great thing for Indigenous people to have our language. It's who we are as a people, it's who we are as a being, you know, and it feeds your soul. So don't give up and don't question what you're doing.
The road's gonna look very bleak at times, but if it could happen here, it can happen there, wherever you are. It's been many years or decades, not a century, but it's been more than a couple of decades now. Almost 3 decades, almost 4. But don't give up. It's gonna take time. So to have that perseverance and patience.
For those who are beginning in this journey, I think it's very important to reach out to the community, because there are different stakeholders involved. For instance, making sure that you touch upon all the elders in the kupuna in the community, because they have the pearls, they have that ike, the knowledge. So don't be afraid to reach out. And yes, it's going to be difficult, but I think we all have a goal, and that is to keep our culture intact, the language intact, to keep who we are as a people intact.
Well, to me, if you're starting a new school, just like I said in the other room or in here, you just get up and do it, you know. So to me, for the other schools to listen to us and just go out and do it, you know. Just go out and think from your heart and pray and say, I'm going to do it, you know. And your language will get out there, and takes 1, next year 2, 3, 4, 5. And pretty soon you got a whole group. Like I told you, 3, 6, 12, we keep adding up there. And don't give up, don't give up. These are for the children. And you look out there for your language, to save your language, to save your country, your tribe, your reservations. Just think how beautiful it is and save it, you know. I listen to other tribes talking Indian, and I just love them, you know.
So for programs that are starting an immersion program, my advice would be don't stray off and from your cultural practices and everything that your group is about. Stick to it, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise, because that's your foundation. Stick to all the foundational things of your culture. Look for other avenues to become a better school. Seek help. Go out and get resources. You might not agree with all of them, but we can take a little bit from everyone and make something really good. Just love the kids and show them that, and be proud of your school and your culture, and hopefully that'll rub off on the students, and you'll get a good core foundation going through. I think that's really key, because I think that's what we're doing here, and it's showing right now. Yeah.
For other immersion teachers is that never give up. If it's your dream, you continue to do it no matter what happens. That in the long run, you will have produced a speaker.
I hope you found that as inspiring as I did, and that you noticed the theme. It won't always be easy, but it will be worth it. So just do it. At the top of the clip, you heard mention of Daryl Kipp's 4 rules. Daryl was the founder of the Pagan Institute and Darren's father. I not only heard about these rules at Pagan, but also at Nkusum. Darren, would you share your father's 4 rules?
Yeah, the 4 rules, you heard Jesse describe the 4 rules so well. And, I just want to share with our viewers that Jesse, his Blackfoot name is Esenepoye. It translates to speaks Cree. And he's a graduate of Cutswood School. And he's now a teacher at Cutswood School. So that's your goal. And that's why you in a sense, you have these rules of like, don't debate the issues, don't ask for permission. Show, don't tell, because you're setting a value-based approach that not only the students understand, but the parents, the staff, and then ultimately the entire community gets it too. So it helps to just really solidify that value-based approach for any organization and any classroom as well.
Thank you, Darren. So let's review those 4 rules. They should pop up there for your review as well. Never ask permission to accept stewardship of your language. Never debate the merits of the vision to preserve tribal languages. Respect the power of your language. Show, do not tell. Don't waste time talking about what should be done. Instead, work hard to accomplish the vision. Just like you heard some of the speakers in that last video talk about, just do it. So as you think about these 4 rules or principles, which does your program struggle with the most? Which one do you think you could most improve in that area? And you'll see there's another poll right below me where you can select one of those 4. And as you're doing that, then we will pop over and see which one you think you as a program would like to work on the most. And it looks like right now, respecting the power of your language is where most of our folks are falling. And that's a great one. So as you think about respecting the power of your language, why do you think that's been challenging for your program? And how do you think you can address this challenge with your team? That's something that we can discuss further in the chat box, during the Q&A period, and on our upcoming visits. So as we move along, I love ending on a high note, and I think that inspirational advice video is a great high note. I hope you found the advice from Helemano, Jesse, Diana, Cheney, and Darren as inspirational as I did. As we head into the question and answer section of the webinar, remember that you can pop your questions for any of our guests into the chat room over on the right. I hope you've enjoyed this peek into 4 well-established, high-quality native language immersion programs. Think about how morning practices, the concept of family, the various instructional strategies, and the practitioner's words of wisdom can positively impact your programs and your planning. Now it's time for questions. So we're going to go over to the chat box and steal some of the questions that have been coming up as we go along. And it looks like our first question has to do with morning practice. So how do you decide what components to include in your morning practice? So I think this is one that we can actually go to each of our live guests and any ideas that you have as far as how your program decided what to include in your morning practice. Let's start out, if we can go over to Elizabeth.
Okay, sorry. I would say the elders lead our morning routine, and they're really good about checking in with students, getting us prepared for our day, our week, whatever we need to do. They're good about reminding us of the things that we need to do, and also giving us the stories and the language that we're going to need for our day. So I think the elders take the lead on that, and it's good to give them that time to so that they can focus us for our day and what we're going to do for that day.
Wonderful. I think it is a great strategy to rely upon advice and guidance from your elders. Now let's go over to Darren. How did y'all decide what to include in your morning protocols?
We call our morning session Big Circle, and we've been doing Big Circle literally from day one when the first school was established, Moxon Flat School. And Big Circle is just simply that, gathering everybody in a circle. We have staff, everybody, and we go over phrases and words, and it's a great opportunity to do that qualitative and quantitative assessment for every child. And that Big Circle time is that perfect moment to do that, because you can tell, is the child having a good day, a bad day, and you can then work from that. And then you also have the ability to realize, is the child learning at this point? Are they learning from the other students in the room? So it's a great opportunity to go back to a way to just, set the day, as we've said, but also to do that qualitative and quantitative assessment of the day. And that way you're not setting any child up for failure, and you're certainly not setting yourself up for failure. And I think Big Circle has been very successful for us, because it's allowed us to really highlight each child. Like when they're performing at their peak, we go, okay, put them in the hot seat and put them in that teaching position. And if a child is having a bad day, hey, go a little easy. And that all goes back to that idea of grandmother's house. That idea of just never set a child up for failure, and always, there's got to be some love in the day too. And that time in Big Circle is a great time to express love and some humor. And that goes a long way. So we've done Big Circle from day one, and it's something that we've all kind of, in a sense, inherited and still use today. So I encourage people to use a technique like a gathering in the morning for everybody. We do our school prayer. We go over phrases and words, and every once in a while we'll do a little bit of singing. And we don't put a time limit on Big Circle. If things are flowing, it can go for an hour, it can go for 2 hours. You really have to have that flexibility to do it.
Thanks, Darren. And yeah, you brought up two things that I definitely noticed when I was there for Morning Circle, or Big Circle, sorry. And yeah, you could feel the love and the relationships that had been built between all of the staff and the students and amongst the students. And so that was a great atmosphere to really be able to start the day. All right, let's go over to Alani and check out, how did you decide on what to include in your morning practice?
From the beginning, what we did was we based it on an ancestral practice. We went back to look at, we see it as a training for ceremony, and it's a skill that our students use at school every day, but also when they go out into the environment. It's really asking for permission of the environment, grounding themselves in where they are. So a chant was composed for our school, so that our students know those who came before them and the large sort of geographical elements that are particular to our area. and then they face a particular way in the rising of the sun. And then we also, so they ask for permission to come in, and then our teachers respond in another chant that was composed for our school to let them, the students, know that they are now ready to begin the day. And then they go through an additional history and the importance of our language and of our people, looking at our genealogies that, again, are particular to this geographical area. We do Hawaii Pono'i, which is our national anthem. And then at the end, we do a mele. And so we pick a song that, again, connects to a value that we want to have. And then our teachers, we have a positive behavior supports group committee that assigns what we call olelo no'eau, or wise sayings. And so our kumu will then go up and share those values and relate it to what is currently happening in the school. And so every kumu gets an opportunity to both share an olelo no'eau or a wise saying with our students, and that way we embed the values of our school in the beginning of the day.
Great, thanks, Olani.
Sarah,
and actually,
not to interrupt you, but we did get a comment in the chat room from somebody that they said they don't have a morning song, but they have a song that they would like to start that covers both of their languages. So I thought that was pretty neat.
yeah, and I have a feeling that is from Susan in Yukon, since she's working with 2 languages there. And yeah, I think that would be great to be able to incorporate both together. And Olani, I was hoping you could share one of the things, it wasn't in the clip, but that I got to see when I was there, how if a student comes in the morning a little bit late, how they're then welcomed into the morning.
Yeah, so you get students who are tardy. And so the one thing that we tell both parents and students is that you don't just walk in to the protocol. You, again, have to ask permission. So the students who are on time go through the entire ceremony, and then when they finish, they then turn to the permission in the group. Again, they've missed some of that the ceremony, and so they can't just walk in. And that, again, is a skill that is transferred into higher level ceremonies that our students do when they go out into the environment, or it would be appropriate if you were doing like an Ava ceremony or whatever. But this, we start very young in training them around the appropriate practices in ceremony.
Yeah, and I thought it was just a great way to then bring the students in so they didn't just entirely miss that morning piece. It was very nice. So our next question, we actually touched upon, Darren, you touched upon it, was asking whether teachers always lead the morning piece or whether students ever take part in leading any of that as well. And so I know, Darren, you had mentioned sometimes the students will take part in leading components of that. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, what we would term peer-to-peer teaching or peer-to-peer learning is really a big part. And actually, that was a very much a traditional way of living for as Native people. Was you were always in a learning role and you were always in a teaching role. And so we definitely, the big circle and that morning session really, again, it helps us to kind of identify those students that are really firing on all cylinders, so to speak, and then put them in those leadership roles. And you become a better speaker when you start teaching the language. It's just like anything else in life. Once you kind of start teaching, you get some insights. And so we've found that that's really just another way to empower the students with the language, is to put them in those teaching roles. So yeah, when you see that, and there's always, every group always has those 1 or 2 students that it just seems to click. And so, you've got to take advantage of that brilliance and genius and put it to work.
Great. And Elizabeth, what about in Kusum? Do the students ever take part in any leadership of the morning piece?
Yeah, so every day we choose one of our students to lead the prayer part of Yamansut. And then we also have a story time, which the kids really like, and the every day we have different students get up and use the language that they know and tell us a story. And it can be anything that they want to tell us. It could be a dream. It could be a story about when they went in the mountains, or it could just be about their family at home. Anything that they want to share with us, and incorporate as much of the language as they can into their stories. And that, I feel like that is empowering for them, and that they enjoy doing that. And so we actually do that every day. We have that story time.
Yeah, I love that. That way they're able to really show off the language that they've been learning and get that extra practice. Great. Yeah. Well, our next question has come in. This one is about outdoor learning and field trips, and they were saying that their school is kind of hesitant for them to be spending significant amounts of time outside or going on multiple field trips throughout a semester. So do you have any advice for how to help school or district leadership recognize the importance of that? And I know that's something that we had actually chatted about, Olani, if you want to kick us off on that thought.
Yeah, I think having leadership buy into it. I mean, I'm trying to push the Kumu outside, our teachers outside of the classroom, because I think as far as where our school comes from, that's where the real learning happens. And so we actually collect data on how many, we call them huaka'i, trips or research trips that our students take. And we get students going out. We begin our field trips from grade 1, and they go out regularly to a particular spot. That's where they learn how to develop observation of the environment. That's where they become familiar with place. We really liken the environment like going to visit your grandmother. The more you do it, the more in tune you become to the changes in the environment, and then you become a steward of that environment. And so it's not just our are participating and laboring in that environment as if you were to go to your grandmother's house to visit her, help her maybe clean her kitchen, rake her yard. There has to be some give back as well, because in that give back, you learn. And so if I could push our teachers more outside of the classroom, I definitely would. I know from a school administrative standpoint, there are logistical issues. You need to have transportation. You need to make sure for us that our teachers are get lifeguard training. You need to make sure, because we're by the ocean, you need to make sure that the students have the right equipment. So we have on our school supply list our tabis, which allow our students to get their feet wet in the ocean. We also provide swimming lessons for our students because they are going out in the environment and observing. We have waterproof paper so that they can collect their data. So there's all these other considerations, but we feel that then also kicks up the language acquisition and application outside of the four walls of a classroom.
Wonderful. And yeah, when you could see the kids actually using their language out in the environment, you could see them really making those connections. And Elizabeth, what about you? Do you have any thoughts as far as helping to encourage that outdoor piece?
Sorry, keep forgetting to do that. One thing that I would suggest when you, at the very beginning of the year, or whenever you can, sit down and make a good plan. If you are following the seasons, our school, their curriculum is season-based. So if, for instance, in the spring coming up, we go get teepee poles and go dig roots and pick berries in the summer. If you can make a good solid somewhat of a plan for that kind of stuff. It really helps with that way when you do bring the language and it all comes together, it can come together, and the kids, it's effective. The kids are, you're ready for it, and because a lot of times you can run into maybe you go up and it's not time for something, or so just kind of planning ahead and thinking through how you would want to go about going outdoors and where you want to go, and establishing that ahead of time so that it's more effective for your students and for your teachers and the school.
Thank you. And I think that's key. A lot of the programs that we visited, as well as the grantees viewing today, do plan around the seasons. And I think making those connections and really putting together that plan will help as a justification and explanation. And Darren, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Yes, you know, where we're located, you know, we have long winters, cold winters, and even today it's a nice day out, but it's still cold. So that's always a challenge for us dealing with. So a lot of times we bring the outdoors into the classroom, and so we'll bring plants in. A lot of the things that we incorporate onto our school are our traditional games that we played. You know, all tribes had games they played, and a lot of those games require, you know, willows, requires cottonwood. And so it's a great way, using traditional games and designing and building traditional games is a great way to kind of bring the outside into the classroom due to weather and logistics and all of those kinds of issues that we all face. So those are just ways to do it. And we take an approach like this. I know everybody uses seasons, and so we try to always say, let's try to get the students to know 5 trees, 5 plants, 5 animals, you know, for that particular season. And that's how we just slowly start to bring the outdoors into the classroom. And so we don't get a lot of time outside until about mid-May, actually. Right now, it's just too muddy to go do anything, and it's flooding. So you have to be resourceful in those areas. And that's how we do it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, that, you know, being resourceful and flexible to bring the outdoors in, and even the design of the building there at Pagan really brings the outdoors in, because as you may have seen in some of the clips, there's all these great windows, huge windows, so that even when you're indoors, it's bringing in a lot of the outdoors. Well, that's the last question we have time for, but we do have one quick final poll question for all of you viewing. And that's, was this showcase beneficial for you and or your program? So again, just right below where you can see me right now, it's a quick yes or no poll. So if you can give us a vote there. And as you're doing that, it's time to wrap up our showcase. I want to remind you not to sign off just yet, because we do have a quick feedback survey about today's showcase, and you'll find the link to that feedback survey over in the chat room. Remember, it just takes a couple of minutes to complete this and really helps us as we plan for our upcoming webinars. We really enjoyed having our guest speakers today, and we thank all of them for joining us live. We hope their advice and tips prove useful in your planning and your programs, and you can look forward to learning more from them and all of their staff back at the programs in our next Promising Program Showcase. Thank you for joining us today, and remember, you can always contact us at sbrightwell@seiservices.com. I look forward to seeing all of you soon on our spring site visit.